Continuing with my current hobby of exploring personal knowledge management tools, I'd like to share my first impressions of AFFiNE. This tool might be less familiar to some compared to more popular options like Notion, Evernote, or Obsidian. The impression of a PKM tool can vary significantly depending on how it is used. After all, the word personal is in its name. These first impressions are based solely on my own workflow. However, I hope you can relate to at least part of my experience and determine if it's worth your time to try, especially since it is free. Let's get started. AFFiNE is a productivity tool developed by ToEverything, a company registered in Singapore. The tool is designed to provide a unified platform for various productivity needs, including document editing, diagram drawing, and planning. AFFiNE is built on the principles of flexibility and transformation, inspired by the concept of affine transformations in mathematics, which allow for various types of geometric transformations. AFFiNE is built using two other open source projects, BlockSuite and Octobase, both of which are also developed by ToEverything. BlockSuite is a project focused on developing a block-based text editor. Octobase is a team-friendly backend and database project built on conflict-free replicated data type. CRDT is a clever algorithm that lets you update data independently on multiple replicas, all while keeping everything in sync and consistent. AFFiNE Alpha was launched in late 2022 as the Markdown editor. Currently, the latest stable version of AFFiNE is 0.14.6. If you are interested in experiencing the upcoming version of the app, you can download the true beta version from their website. This availability highlights the ongoing active development of the application. The core components of AFFiNE includes block-based document editor. This allows users to create and edit documents using modular block system. One of the core design principles of AFFiNE system is the organization of groups of blocks as a database. This database can then be presented in various ways. Similar to the AFFiNE transformations in the mathematics, the core elements remains the same, but the presentation can be adapted in multiple ways. AFFiNE is an open source, local first app. It aims to be an all-in-one solution for knowledge management. While this is an ambitious goal, and they are not the only ones striving for it, their current core design seems to be genuinely geared towards achieving this objective. This is primarily due to their modular and flexible design. This app is fully functional even when offline. In fact, when you download the desktop app, you don't even need to create an account to use it. I appreciate local first apps because they provide security, privacy, and a sense of ownership over my notes. I need the ability to sync my notes across multiple devices, including my home computer, mobile devices, and work computers. AFFiNE offers a free 10 GB cloud sync service through their online server. If you prefer not to use this service, they also provide a free self-hosting option. If you want to sync your local copies across devices using third-party cloud storage service like iCloud, Google Drive, or Dropbox, the latest stable release currently does not support changing a local file path. The ability to choose a local file path is planned for the future. However, the developers are uncertain how this feature will work with third-party cloud sync services. Independent of how great the dedicated apps are, I need web app for my use case because my work computers do not permit the installation of third-party applications. AFFiNE does offer a fully functional web app. I have experienced no issue accessing and taking my notes on my work computers, home computer, personal laptop, even without internet access. Open source applications offer numerous advantages. While I may not be able to cover all the benefits comprehensively, here are a few key points, assuming there is a robust community of developers and programmers Reviewing the code. Enhance security and privacy. Open source applications are less likely to contain malicious code because even a single instance of intentional malicious code can jeopardize the entire project. Moreover, vulnerabilities are identified more quickly due to multiple reviewers. Accelerated development. With a larger pool of potential contributors, development can proceed more quickly, and the new feature priorities are often driven by community need, not just the core developers. Vendor independence. There is always a concern when selecting a vendor-dependent app. While this might seem paranoid, I feel uncomfortable with my second brain being at risk of abrupt termination by vendor, either through changing business policies or the company ceasing support entirely. With the current status of numerous excellent personal knowledge management apps competing and coexisting, with each continuing to evolve over time and new ones emerging constantly, I prefer to keep my options open. If I discover a new PKM app that is unequivocally superior to my current one for my use case, I don't want to be locked into my current app and unable to switch to the new one. Especially, I do not want to continue paying for a subscription that I no longer need, except to retain old data until I can complete the migration. One of the advantages of AFFiNE being the open source is it is inherently free, ensuring I always have access to my data, even if the original developer decides to cease support. There is a possibility that another developer might take over the project and continue its development. I have a peculiar threshold for subscription. In this context, I'm specifically referring to software as a service. It makes sense to pay for cloud computing power, server storage space. If the app continues to gain features that I use, it also makes sense to paying for them. The current state of note-taking apps presents are challenging for me. Although I believe their core functionality could warrant a one-time payment, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of a monthly subscription, particularly when I have no interest in the new features being introduced. I find it especially frustrating when the company places essential note-taking features behind a paywall, rendering the app incomplete without them. This is where AFFiNE approach resonates with me. Essentially, all the function of AFFiNE is free. There is no functionality that you lose without a subscription. Instead, the company generates revenue by following means. The first method is to charge the commercial and team use. This approach makes perfect sense to me. If you're generating revenue by using the app, it is only fair to compensate the developer. A more relevant option for personal use case is subscription plan, which is tied to specific services. AI subscription. For $8.90 a month, you can access AFFiNE AI. This service is entirely optional. If you need it, you can subscribe. If not, there is no obligation. AFFiNE AI utilizes cloud computational power, making it a reasonable service that justifies the subscription fee. Extra cloud space. Free cloud storage is limited to 10 GB with a maximum file size of 10 MB. For $6.75 a month, you can upgrade to 100 GB of storage with a maximum file size of 100 MB. This fee covers the cost of additional server space. Alternatively, you can set up your own server with free self-hosting if you prefer not to pay for extra storage. This subscription model also seems reasonable. As a user, we have the option to choose whether we want a specific service that utilizes external resources. If we decided to opt in for such a service, we can then subscribe to it. I believe this is a very fair business model. Currently, all notes in AFFiNE can be displayed in two modes: the classic lines of text format, known as page mode, or the canvas view called edgeless mode. At first, I thought I cared less about the edgeless mode, but it's now one of my most favorite features in AFFiNE. While my personal workflow does not currently utilize these features, Edgeless mode offers freehand drawing, shape addition, and pre-built flowcharts. When I was a student decades ago, I chose OneNote as my digital note-taking app because it allowed for free handwriting. Therefore, I can see how this feature would be a major attraction for some users. However, one warning. When I tested AFFiNE with my iPad using the web app, it did not support palm rejection. This suggests it may not yet be ready for the prime time. While these features are impressive, they don't currently fit into my workflow. What I truly appreciate about this mode is its ability to intuitively create what's referred to as project notes in How to Take Smart Notebook by Sonki Arlenz, or project folders on Para Method by Tiago Forte. Previously, I struggled to connect these concepts with atomic notes, which focus on a single concept per note, a method I prefer for personal knowledge management. There are 3 reasons why creating projects are more intuitive in AFFiNE. The first reason is that we can split documents into small pieces, referred to as notes in Edgeless mode. These notes can be reorganized, reordered. I can then switch back to page mode to view the long-form document. This approach supports bottom-up writing. The second reason is that these notes can be displayed in one mode, but not in the other. This allows me to create additional notes such as resource pile on a canvas and selectively choose which one to include in the final write-up in the page mode. These features have enabled me to replace Scrivener, at least for my short-term needs so far. The third reason allows me to distinguish between project or temporary notes and permanent notes. Although I created all these notes in Edgeless mode, they were all contained within a single document. Projects notes are meant to be archived or deleted upon the completion of a project, as they are entirely contextual to that specific project. Consequently, having all these notes in one document essentially transformed the document into a project folder itself. The other PKM apps, distinguishing between project and permanent notes was challenging. I had to choose between writing a long, single note to keep all text within a single project note object, or creating individual notes and labeling them as a project note. The latter cluttered my global note space, and upon project completion, I had to ensure each note was archived. This process became particularly confusing when I wanted to include a permanent note as a part of a project. In such case, I used a note for reference but did not want to delete or archive it after project completion. The core feature of AFFiNE is its ability to transform blocks in various ways, allowing users to choose their preferred working method. At the document level, AFFiNE offers page and edgeless modes for transformation. Within a document, AFFiNE currently supports table databases and Kanban views. Although I haven't extensively used these features myself, their utility became immediately apparent to me, even as a novice. For instance, tracking items that change phases is perfectly suited for the Kanban view. It visually displays the stage of each item, and the drag and drop functionally feels intuitive and efficient. AFFiNE offers AI through the subscription. For the free trial, you are limited to 10 uses. Despite such small number of tests, I've decided to subscribe because I needed help with English grammar. This service is not just a simple Ask AI and get a response system. It is integrated into the platform of AFFiNE. By selecting your text, you can choose the AI to fix grammar, correct spelling, or improve writing. Additionally, you can request changes in tone to make your text more professional or humorous. The service also includes translation into foreign languages. While it can also generate a presentation, the current output does not seem particularly useful. For me, fixing grammar alone is practical. While the cost of $8.90 per month for this optional feature seems reasonable in my opinion, especially there is no usage limit. The reason why I'm rating this as neutral rather than positive is due to its requirement to pay for the entire year upfront. Additionally, they do not offer the option to integrate our own AI subscription key. As the AI integration in AFFiNE continues to evolve, this could easily become a positive aspect of the app. One of my workflows relies heavily on PDFs. It's essential for me to read, highlight, take notes, and store PDFs in an organized manner for reference. Currently, AFFiNE supports PDF embedding, but lacks editing capabilities. According to the developers, this feature is planned for inclusion in version 0.17. Given that they release a new version approximately every 6 weeks or so, and the current version is 0.14, we can expect this feature to be available in approximately 3 to 6 months window. Since it's not yet released, but on the horizon, I am categorizing this as neutral. However, I could see this could become one of the core sales points of AFFiNE for my workflow once the PDF editing feature is released. It's not just convenient of having one app to do it all. I can see that it can actually add a new level of workflow that I was not able to achieve before. Recently, I tested subscription-only PKM Heptabase. It already supports PDF editing and has Canvas. I was impressed how two functions so coherently. It's not something I've had a chance to experience before on my small set of PKM testings. Before it, in Heptabase, you can highlight a PDF and then drag and drop the highlighted note onto the canvas. This action automatically creates a note entry in the system, which retains a link to the original highlighted section of the PDF. This effectively addresses the reference note type in Zettelkasten. By allowing me to take my own notes on it, it then straight became the literature note. While I am uncertain about the exact implementation of PDF support in AFFiNE, but I hope it will follow a similar process. For multitasking, split view functionality is crucial for me. I generally avoid apps that do not support this feature. While the true split view support is not yet available in AFFiNE, AFFiNE enables simultaneous access and opening of documents through its collaboration support already. This means you can open two web apps or one web app and one desktop to achieve a split view functionality even now. The highly anticipated split view feature is expected to be available in near future. Transclusion is the ability to embed the actual content of one node into another. This functionality is crucial for long-form writing, as it allows us to seamlessly integrate individual pieces into a cohesive whole. This is also listed as coming soon feature. According to the developer, this feature will allow for inclusion of entire documents, rather than just individual blocks. To me, this feels somewhat restrictive, especially after experiencing block transclusion on the other platforms. Now let's talk about the weakness. One of the limitations of AFFiNE at this moment is lack of mobile support. While a mobile app is planned, it won't be available until winter 2024. Although it is possible to access AFFiNE through a web app on your mobile device today, the experience is quite suboptimal. For example, one annoying issue I have encountered on my iPhone is that if I misspell a word and hit space, the entire text is wiped out and instead of being autocorrected. Also, more complex edgeless view kept crashing on iPhone during my test. Therefore, if a mobile device is a crucial part of your workflow, AFFiNE might not be ready for you yet. Another main limitation of the app is what I refer to as rough edges or frictions. While the app is functional and I was able to prepare this video script entirely using AFFiNE, several small aspects seem underdeveloped in terms of usability. Consequently, my overall workflow efficiency felt reduced. For example, the block selection box in AFFiNE can only be created from the size and must be at the level of the contents. While this may or may not affect you, or you may not have even noticed it before, This behavior is different from other PKM apps I've used recently, such as Notion, Capacities, Anytype, or Heptabase. My natural workflow was to find a white space area and draw a box from there. Initially, I thought it was a bug until I figured out this strict selection box trigger zone rule on AFFiNE. In AFFiNE, I can only use toggle with bullets. When writing a longer document, I use headers, and each section under the header is a group to me. Therefore, my natural workflow involves making headers into toggles. In AFFiNE, when you indent or unindent the parent section, all nested items will move by the same amount. Although this might initially appear convenient, it differs from the default behavior in other personal knowledge management systems I've used. As a result, this feature can make it more challenging to insert an item between existing entries. One of the more serious friction in AFFiNE is copy and paste. The experience is far from ideal. For instance, when I try to paste tabulated data from Apple numbers, AFFiNE placed each cell content in a separate line, failing to maintain the table format. In contrast, Notion creates editable table perfectly, and Capacities converts the data into an image. When copying text from AFFiNE to Discord, it loses all formatting. On the other hand, Notion and Capacities retain some formatting, making the pasted content more readable. I was also surprised AFFiNE lacking regular table support. This was unexpected given that AFFiNE does support database tables, which offer more advanced features. While I can technically use database tables to organize data in a table format, this approach often exceeds my needs. Creating and editing database tables for simple tasks introduces inefficiencies into my workflow. You may have observed in earlier videos that the image loading in AFFiNE can be slow and far from instantaneous, even though everything should be running locally. This issue impacts both the uploading of new images and the loading of images that have already been uploaded. I frequently encounter inconsistent errors when uploading images, even when using the same file. Recently, I encountered an issue where my desktop edits failed to upload to the cloud. I didn't realize this until the next day when I was using laptop away from home, which made me worry if I could have lost my data. Once I got home, I manually refreshed and resynced my files. Fortunately, I still had my desktop version open with the latest edits and everything synced correctly in the end. I'm unsure how to interpret this incident. Was it failed cloud sync, which is concerning a bug? Or actually CRDT saved me from losing the data? In the end, I did have the correct data. While it didn't help me in this particular case, AFFiNE does offer history. AFFiNE supports object-based note-taking by allowing the combination of manual collection capability and custom properties for each document. This means you can create a collection such as a book and add a new document under it to represent each book, where each of these book doc have set of properties like author and ISBN. However, there's no default template setting, so you must manually add these properties each time a new document is created. Additionally, there's no default view to better display these objects, which would ideally place the properties more prominently. Currently, properties also lack support for linking to the other documents, fixed selection types, and other advanced features. AFFiNE supports linking document, including backlinks. However, it currently lacks a graph view. While I personally haven't found the graph view particularly useful, I acknowledge that many people appreciate this feature for network-based note-taking. Some may even consider it as incomplete network note-taking system without it. As part of my favorite design decision in AFFiNE, they allow us to split the document into notes. This feels like a perfect way to do bottom-up note-taking in a given project without cluttering the entire workspace. However, this workflow is currently limited by lack of an easy way to focus on each note, and also lacks real way to create or access notes in page mode. These are just a few examples I've noticed in my daily workflow while using AFFiNE and quickly compared to other PKMs I have used. Overall, my first impression about AFFiNE is very positive. As I tend to be an optimistic person, I genuinely appreciate their business model and the core philosophy, which include their subscription model, open source approach, local first strategy, and aim to be an all-in-one solution. AFFiNE seems to have one of the highest potentials to achieve the ultimate knowledge management platform. While what I have seen so far and some interactions I have had with the development team do not contradict this potential, the app is still in early stages of its development. Whether this is just conceptual or will actually become a real app needs a bit more time to tell. However, the wait to be able to assess this may not be too far away, at least for my own use case. What the team will put out in the next 3 to 6 months will be very interesting. Thanks for watching.